As I mentioned before Mass, I apologize. I'll spend most of this time giving an update just on where things are at. Many of you have no doubt heard. This past week, our Archdiocese lost two priests. They both passed away, both pastors, both of them actually well connected to our parish here at St. Gabriel. Father Glenn O'Connor, who was formerly an associate pastor here many years ago under Monsignor Knieven. He passed away on Friday night, and he had gone into the hospital some months back with a pulmonary embolism, blood clot in his lungs that he succumbed to on Friday. And then, of course, many of us have heard Father Kevin Morris was killed very unexpectedly in a car accident on Tuesday. First, I invite us all throughout this week to simply remember their salvation, their eternal rest in your prayers, to pray for them. Both of them loved being priests very much, and they were loved very much. I don't know when Father Glenn's funeral arrangements, what those will be yet. They have not been announced. But as it concerns Father Kevin, all of his will be taking place today and tomorrow. Everyone is invited. Anyone's invited to as much or as little if you wish to go. Tonight, beginning at 4 p.m. until 8 p.m., Father Kevin will have his visitation at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton on the campus of Holy Family in that church. The reception of the body will take place at 4. There will be a vigil service from 7 to 8 p.m. Anyone's welcome to come. And then tomorrow at 10:30 a.m., the Archbishop will celebrate Father Kevin's funeral Mass at the Cathedral in Indianapolis. Beyond praying for them, please pray for their parishes. Father Glenn was pastor of St. Susanna in Plainfield, and then Father Kevin was pastor of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton in Richmond. Both parishes are in great shock, very saddened in these days. And of course, with Father Kevin's passing, that affects things in the deanery. I have, in the interim, been named as temporary administrator by the Archbishop to oversee St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Parish and School. It's a temporary assignment, and it will last until the Archbishop is able to appoint another pastor. And so essentially what those duties include is just ensuring that the sacramental, the pastoral, spiritual, and administrative needs of that parish and school in Richmond are met. And as any pastor does in his own parish, I'm going to be relying very, very heavily, thanks be to God, on their very good staff and the very good parish and school leadership there. I'll also have the great assistance of no stranger to us and no surprise, Father John Luerman will be covering their weekend masses, which will be altered beginning next weekend. Say a prayer for him. He's 88 years old, 88 years young, I should say, and pray for him. Without hesitation, he said he'd do it. Without hesitation. Unbelievable. And of course, the Archdiocese will help a great deal in providing just some support and leadership and counsel in this time. But unfortunately, the Archdiocese can't supply a priest in this time. There just are no priests to supply. This past year, we've now lost 4 priests, 4 pastors, 3 who have passed away and 1 who has been removed from his pastorate. And this July, we'll lose 4 more pastors to retirement. A total of 8 pastors we'll lose this year. So as it concerns me as the administrator, I'll be there on site at St. Elizabeth at least each Monday morning or each Wednesday morning and Wednesday afternoon, as well as there will probably be some evenings when I'll need to be there as well. The rest I'm hoping that I can do remotely from St. Gabriel and our parish office of St. Gabriel and St. Bridget. And because of this also, my time's going to be affected, and I apologize for that and ask your patience. I've loved being able to offer a lot of times where I can do one-on-one meetings with parishioners, and in this interim time, I'm just not going to be able to do that and keep up with the sacramental, administrative, pastoral, and spiritual needs of our own parishes, and especially keeping us and myself focused on our 5-year pastoral plan, the Beacon of Hope pastoral plan, that 5-year plan, as well as the Building the Beacon of Hope capital campaign. I will be available, especially for sacramental prep, for marriages, baptisms, that sort of stuff, and any emergencies. I mean that, any emergencies, call our emergency line. Those are things that I do not want to miss, especially for the sake of the dying. And finally, it will affect our weekend schedule. As you saw on the way in, there are signs posted that noon Mass next weekend will be canceled. So last weekend I announced that we were going to move toward a new Mass schedule where we will eliminate the noon Mass, this Mass, due to the fact that we can seat everyone comfortably in 2 Masses at St. Gabriel, which means that 3 Masses are just not necessary. And as we are now feeling, it's also rather impossible right now to expect that priests and parishes can offer more than what is necessary. And also I announced a big reason because of that, or that we're doing it, is to get more people in 1 Mass or more people in 2 Masses rather than spread out over 3, which provide amazing benefits to the spiritual and liturgical life of a parish. And St. Bridget can testify to that in spades. That schedule, which I announced last weekend, that was going to be St. Gabriel would have a Saturday evening Mass 5:30, Bridget's at 8:15 on Sunday in the morning, and then Gabriel's at 10:30 a.m. That was to begin on June 1 and 2. We're going to scoot that schedule up, and we'll begin that new Mass schedule where all the Masses will change on May 11th and 12th. And then in the interim, so that's the permanent schedule, there will be an interim schedule as well where our current Mass schedule will remain unaffected with the exception of the noon Mass. There will be a number of Masses coming up where the noon Mass will be canceled, with the exception of Easter and the weekend of First Holy Communion on May 5th. All this will be in writing, all this will be sent out in emails, it'll all be communicated, especially when I let liturgical ministers know at the noon Mass. If you are scheduled for an upcoming noon Mass, you won't be transferred directly to another Mass, but you're welcome to come and step up and help out at any of the Masses when there is no noon Mass. The reason for this is a couple, well, I almost missed a baptism yesterday, and I'm only 5 days into this. I almost missed a baptism of one of our parishioners yesterday, which is horrible. And I just to level with you, I'm exhausted already. And that's not a woe is me. That is simply, I love being a priest, and I want to be a priest, and I want to be a pastor for a very long time. I don't want to lose my mind. I love being a priest, and I want to continue that. And so I beg your patience in this interim time. We'll figure this out, and it will affect the deanery as well, I'm sure. And I want you to know that it is awesome being a priest. All of us who are priests are so blessed to live this life. I'm very blessed to be the pastor here. Father Kevin was so blessed to be the pastor at St. Elizabeth. Father Glenn of St. Susanna. We are blessed. But it's a really good occasion to remember, one, to pray for them, those priests, to pray for their parishes, but to pray for our youth, our young people. To pray for them and encourage them to consider where our Lord is calling them in life. Just before this Mass, I received an email from someone, kind of a snarky email, not from our parish, that just said, why don't we get Rome to send us some priests? And guys, you and I both know it's not Rome's job to supply us with priests. It is our job to supply our local church with priests. It is the job of parishes, our parish. It is the job of families, our families. It is the job of priests, me. It is the job of us to supply local priests. It is our job to ensure that our young women respond to Jesus Christ when he calls them to become his bride in a religious vocation. It is our job to call them out by name, to say Charlotte, to say Michael, Emily, Axl Rose, Levi, Hunter. It is our job to say Audrey, Rylan, Ella, Brody, Molly, Garrett. It is our job to say Kennedy and Kingston. It is our job to call them out, McKinley. It is our job to say Ada. It is our job to say Caroline, Andrew, Sarah Beth, Julia, Emma, Andrew, Alexa, Nicholas, Lily. It is our job to call them by name. Graham, Trot, Alexander. To call them by name, because that is what our Lord does. And to say, have you considered what our Lord is calling you to do? Life is hard for everyone, and we all have crosses, and these young people can look at you and see that. They can see that your lives as parents and grandparents, as human beings, as priests, there is a cross to it. Yes, but there is a mountaintop. There is joy. There is a life transfigured by the cross into Easter, into resurrection, and to encourage them to not be afraid. Because, guys, we're in need. We are in need of these young people to know that you and I have their back always and will encourage them. Call them by name and pray for them. That is what our Lord does, and we are called to stand in that place.